The following show is a Pod Avenue production. You are cordially invited to have dinner with the King. Pull up a chair and join WWE Hall of Famer Jerry the King Lawler and Glenn Moore. Enjoy.
Here we are, episode number 13, King. Lucky number 13 when it comes to episode here, A Dinner with the King. I'm Glenn Moore, and sitting here...
Wait a minute, lucky number. Well, how is 13 a lucky number?
I mean...
All down through history, that's the unluckiest number. You know what? I even had, at one time, in, let's see, what year was this? This was around 2000, I think. A company came to me out of Jackson, Tennessee, and they were involved in the NASCAR races, racing series, and they had a car that they were racing in the, I guess there's like different divisions or different levels. There's a thing called ARCA, which is just right under the NASCAR. They use the exact same cars and some of those same drivers as they do in NASCAR races, but it's like maybe one little level below it. And they came to me and they wanted me to sponsor one of the cars, and so. Like an idiot, I put a little money into it, and they put my name and my picture. And I think this was back at the time when WWE, I guess the WWE had some. They might have done drag racing. I'm not sure, but they had some, character sponsored cars and everything. Anyway, they put my picture on the hood of the car and on the roof and the side. They had KingJerryLawler.com down the side of the car, but the car was number 13. And of course, that I always blame that unlucky number on being the doom of my venture into the NASCAR racing endeavor. They called me one day. They were having a big race in Nashville, and they called me up and they said, "Well, we blew an engine in the time trials or in the whatever when they're the little race they have to see where they're going to be in the pole position and that sort of thing." And they said, "We blew the engine," and I said, "Well, can you get another one?" And they said, "Oh yeah." They said, "We can rent one for $65,000." Oh. I said, "Do you what? Rent one?" It wouldn't even be ours, and it's cost $65,000. So anyway, I didn't stay in the NASCAR racing venture, but I still blame it on number 13. So I don't know if this is going to be a lucky podcast today or not.
Well, we are sitting here at your barbecue restaurant here in Cordova, Tennessee. I have a big plate of meat in front of me, some waffle fries, and you do as well. But hopefully, because we're here at the restaurant eating, nothing's bad's going to happen for episode number 13. I'm hoping, Jerry.
Well, I'll hope as well. And I just hope you don't run up another astronomical bill here. Good grief. What is up with 2 plates of waffle fries?
You know what? The first time I had them was our first episode, together, and you were plugging them heavily. So now I'm hooked on them, and I can't get enough. I need an IV drip with waffle fry juice.
Well, just for anyone listening, they're gorgeous looking, right? They're sweet potato waffle fries, just kind of dusted with powdered sugar, and then there's some. I know this is what your favorite part is, that maple syrup that you can just kind of dip them down into a little bit, right?
Well, Jerry, you have
some on your chin right now.
Well, Jerry, I got in trouble because I get here earlier before you, and I set up, with the microphones and the mixer and whatnot, and one of the workers caught me, dipping with the maple syrup before, taking too much that I'm supposed to.
So see, 13 has already been unlucky for you today, Glenn.
I didn't get yelled at, but I got the evil look from the employees. Hey,
evil eye. Yeah,
evil
we call
eye.
it the stink eye. It's the stink eye down there.
All right, episode number 13. It's going to be wrapping up our Andy Kaufman podcast series. We're going to be talking about
finally, we're wrapping up the Andy Kaufman series.
Going towards the end of your feud with him. We're going to talk about his death, and I have some audio from the last kind of segment that you and him did together, which was him coming on the Jerry Lawler show, and he was coughing a little bit. I'm going to ask you about him being sick and when he told you and whatnot, and he was coughing. Seemed like he was not well during that interview. We'll also talk about your comments on Memphis Wrestling TV about Andy Kaufman's death, because you stay in character and you say the course when it comes to the feud with Andy Kaufman. So I have audio of that. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Man on the Moon. We'll go a little bit more into the filming, how some things happen in the movie that didn't happen in real life. But before we get into the whole Andy Kaufman, I have some questions, and people always send in questions, for the podcast, and we always get to them rushing towards the end of the show. So we're gonna do it differently.
Questions first.
We're gonna talk some topics, but then do questions, and then we'll do Andy Kaufman. So you were wrestling dangerous Doug Gilbert in a steel cage this past week, and how'd that go in Jackson, Tennessee?
Well, it went very well, as a matter of fact. I didn't get my separated shoulder re-injured any worse than it was. Did I tell you that a couple of weeks ago? I guess the old father time is creeping up on me, and it seems like everything I do now results in another form of injury or whatever. I went bowling about 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
And you know how they rent you those leather-soled shoes and everything? They're supposed to glide across the wooden floor before you release the bowling ball.
Did you fall?
No, I did not fall. Okay. I think they gave me some unlucky shoes, though, because one of the times as I'm going down to roll another strike and get ready to roll a big turkey there, I'm getting ready to bowl, and the bottom of my shoe just sort of hooked. It didn't hook, but it gripped the floor and it didn't slide, and I hyperextended my left knee. It was just like, my foot just stopped, and I kept going. So, and it hurt a little bit then, and I thought, man, that's crazy. It just hurt my knee bowling. But then the next day, it was like hurting more and more. And anyway, it's been driving me crazy for like 3 weeks now. I actually went to my doctors at Champion Orthopedics down in South Haven, Mississippi last week. Took my son, Brian Christopher, with me, who's got the worst knees. They x-rayed both our knees, and the doctor comes out and said, now, he's your son, right? And I said, yeah. They said, his knees are 3 times worse than yours.
Oh, boy.
And yeah, he's looking at at 2 double knee replacements is what the doctor said is the only thing that's going to help him. His knees are so bad. He's had 5 knee surgeries, and I've been doing this 46 years and never had a knee surgery ever, And so he, anyway, they gave him some like cortisone shots in the knee, and he was screaming in pain and everything. I said I was watching him giving the knee shots, and then he said, "Now I think if we shoot one in your left knee, it'll get rid of all the pain." I said, "I'll pass. I'll ride it out after watching him get that shot." So anyway, the knee's been bothering me, but we made it through the steel cage match fine. Great crowd there in Jackson, Tennessee, at the Oman Arena. The Oman Arena in Jackson, Tennessee is it's like the little twin brother of the Mid-South Coliseum. It looks just exactly like the Mid-South Coliseum that we wrestled in for 20 years in Memphis, and it's always fun to go there. And so we had a good show. We had Coco Beware was there. Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart was in my corner during the steel cage match. As a matter of fact, at the end of the match, somehow, surreptitiously, his megaphone was thrown over the top of the cage, and it wound up in my hands. But I guess it was an anything goes match anyway, so there was no disqualification. So anyway, I wound up using Jimmy Hart's megaphone to help me win the match there in Jackson, Tennessee against dangerous Doug Gilbert. So hopefully, like we're going to finish up the Andy Kaufman series today, hopefully that finishes up my Gilbert family feud that's gone on for over 20 years as well.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about your feud with Doug and Eddie Gilbert, that infamous promo that Doug Gilbert, people still talk about it today because they think, what they want to think about it. But we'll talk about that in a future episode. But speaking of steel cages, right off the top of my head, a lot of people are talking about steel cage matches and how, compared to, yesteryear, it used to be a bloodbath, two guys in a cage. Was your cage match against Doug, was that winner goes over the cage or through a door, or
it could have been a combination. Back in the day, we didn't have the stipulation where you could climb out of the cage and be the winner, or open the door and be the winner.
Yeah.
The steel cage back in the day was designed just to keep the participants in, right, and to keep anybody that might interfere out. And then the rules were the same inside the cage. You just had to win by submission or pinfall or whatever. And that's we did incorporate both in the match in Jackson. You couldn't escape through the door, but if it was pinfall or submission inside the cage, or if you climbed out over the top rope or over the top of the cage rather and got both feet on the floor, you could win that way. And Doug did try to climb out a few times. I didn't venture up the top. I wasn't planning on venturing up to the top of that cage. I was impressed. It was a really good steel cage. I mean, I've had steel cage matches here in Tennessee in the past where the cages weren't exactly up to par. You know, you get there and you see this wooden frame and chicken wire stapled to it or something like that. But this was a very good cage, and it was really high, so I wasn't going to try to climb over the top of that thing.
Yeah, because I don't. Yeah, the stipulation where, you know, the object of the cage is to keep people out and keep the guys in, but you know the winner escapes. It doesn't. You know, it should be just straight pinfall or submission in the cage. And
one of my favorite, every time I think of our cage matches, one of my favorite cage matches of all time was in Memphis, Tennessee. And this was when Randy Macho Man came back down to Memphis, and we had a match, and he was already wrestling in the WWE. He came down to Memphis for this cage match with me, and he brought Sensational Sherry as his valet, and she was on the outside of the cage, and something, the match was going on, and then somehow Sherry climbed up. Sherry was just awesome. She was a great valet and a great, you know, female wrestler and all this stuff. Really talented and really athletic and all this sort of stuff. But anyway, she climbed that high cage, and she had on this long dress and or skirt thing, right? She climbed the cage. She gets in the ring. Boom, she does something to me. I don't know. She interferes in the match while the referee was knocked down or whatever. And then, though, as she tried to climb back out of the cage, I got back up to my feet, and I caught her right as she was just about to go over the top of the cage. And I grabbed and I pulled the skirt down, and their skirt came completely off. And it was the greatest. I mean, the roof blew off the top of the Coliseum. It was just an awesome sight. I mean, she just had on, you remember the old bra and panties matches?
Oh, yeah.
That they used to have in the WWE? Well, that was, I think that was our Memphis crowd. That was their first glimpse of what a bra and panties match was going to look like when her skirt came off at the top of the cage. But it was that was a memorable cage match that we had with Randy Savage at the Coliseum one year.
Yeah.
The one in Jackson was not quite. We didn't have that good a highlight. We just had Jimmy Hart throwing the megaphone in at the end.
All right. Before we
we also sang. Hey, we also sang. It was a rock and wrestling show. Jimmy Hart. We had a band there. Tom Nunnery had a band, and Jimmy Hart while they were setting up the cage. You know, they usually have a long intermission. While they were setting up the cage, they filled that time with some singing. And Jimmy Hart got up and sang his. Some of his hits from back in the past, you know, back in the mid '60s, Jimmy Hart he had a band called the Gentrys that knocked the Beatles off the charts with a song called "Keep On Dancing" that went all the way to #1. And
Ooh.
So Jimmy sang a couple songs. Coco Beware came out and sang, and then I came out.
What'd you sing?
Well, I sang my old hit song "Bad News."
Yeah. Bad News.
Yeah.
We're going to do a whole episode about your song. Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah.
That song was never released, but it escaped, and so it was. We had a lot of fun with that. Now we'll do a podcast about that. Maybe can we actually play some of the songs on podcast?
I have about 5 or 6 of your songs. I have the audio of these songs, so I have them all ready when we do our music episode. Wrestling with Girls. We have Limp Busters. Bad News. I have all these songs ready for our music episode.
Okay, that sounds good. So I'll save my musical stories for that then. But anyway, yeah, the Jackson show was fun. We got some more shows coming up. As a matter of fact, before we get into the Andy Kaufman thing, you know, tonight we record this on Wednesdays, or comes out on Wednesdays. So tonight I'm going to be over in Charlotte, North Carolina, throwing out the first pitch at the Charlotte Knights game. They're having a big royal night. It's royalty night for the Charlotte Knights. Of course, they're the Knights are like the King Arthur's Knights there, and so they got a big game tomorrow night. Going to be there at 6:30, throwing out the first pitch and signing autographs. So if you're in the Charlotte area, come on by the stadium there and see the Charlotte Knights and say hi to me, and we'll have a great time. Then this weekend, oh my gosh, listen, this weekend. Let me tell you what's going on this weekend. On the 9th, The 9th, I'm going to be, let me see, where am I going to be? On the 9th, which is Friday, in Waterbury, Connecticut. Listen to the talent that's on this show. I am really looking forward to this. Jake the Snake Roberts is going to be there. Oh, my gosh. Alberto Del Rio is there?
Oh, I'm sure Paige will be in tow.
Yeah. And then, of course, I'm wrestling. And guess who is going to be in my corner as my valet?
Lauren.
Keep it down. No. Kelly.
Oh, who you facing?
Yes, I'm going to be. Can't tell you that. But anyway, Keith Lee is going to be there. Jake the Snake Roberts, Flip Gordon, Alberto Del Rio, and me, and Kelly in my corner. Ooh. That's Friday at Waterbury, Connecticut, at the Crosby High School gym. That's a huge gym there in Waterbury. And then that Saturday, you mentioned him earlier, Ryback is going to be along with me, Ryback, Rey Mysterio, Jake the Snake Roberts, Mick Foley, Corey Graves, and me at the Rumble in Rockland. That is in Pomona, New York. And that's Saturday night, 7:30 at the Palisades Union Park. That's actually a baseball stadium there.
Are you wrestling?
Yeah, I'm wrestling.
Oh, look at you! Yeah,
I'm not wrestling Ryback, but I'm wrestling on the show. Yeah,
you got
Corey Graves is there. Rey Mysterio, Mick Foley, Ryback, Jake the Snake, and me.
You got a busy week.
Busy week coming up.
I don't like the Charlotte Knights because they're the affiliate of the Chicago White Sox, which is the rival of the Indians.
That's true.
You're not going to be putting on a White Sox hat, are you?
No, I'm not. I think if I'm not mistaken, they may be playing the. Let me see. Who are they playing?
Because we all know that you are known. Well, not known, but you have done that. You have switched teams on us. Remember that Baltimore Ravens jersey you wore here in Cleveland?
No, don't remind anybody of that.
There's pictures.
I was forced to do that.
There's pictures.
I was forced to do that.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, no. I think Charlotte Knights are playing the Durham Bulls.
Oh,
that's another famous team. Yeah.
Do you know who the manager is of the Charlotte Knights? He's a former Indian.
Oh gosh. Tell me. I do know because they were just talking about him. I did a radio interview yesterday about
Mark Grudzielanek.
Who?
Mark Grudzielanek.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly right.
His last year in the majors was 2010 with the Tribe.
That's how you pronounce his name.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Tribe, former Indians player for one season. So I'm sure you'll run into him, maybe.
Oh, without a doubt. I may pile drive him.
Jeez. Well, he'll be bad.
I've got a string going now. I've got a feud going with all the minor league and MLB mascots. They're like Andy Kaufman. I think they put a bounty out on me.
Oh, geez.
They're looking for somebody that can stop me from clotheslining and pile driving the mascots.
Well, judging by your gut, I would seem like you love hot dogs.
What did you just say?
I said, judging by your gut, looks like you love hot dogs.
You, of all people, sitting there looking at you. My gosh. I can't believe that you would make a disparaging remark about my weight. You, the nutritional overachiever. I have to be politically correct here on the show now.
I know. All right. Before we get into the questions, I want your opinion on this pay-per-view coming up for Raw. It's in 5 weeks. The title of it is based on a song that was recorded in Memphis, Tennessee, a very, very well-known musical artist, and Jerry Lee Lewis. Great Balls of Fire. Now,
the way you say that, you don't even say it right. It's Great Balls of Fire. It's not Great Balls of Fire. It's you don't put the emphasis on the word balls in that song. The emphasis should be on the word fire.
Well,
Great Balls of Fire.
I'm saying it because it's like, I mean, you have some cool pay-per-view names back in the day. You know, WWE had, Armageddon. WCW had a couple of, Starrcade, Halloween Havoc, some good pay-per-view names. Great Balls of Fire, I don't get it.
Well, you know what? At first, I didn't get it either. But did you see Raw, or did you see the promo for it on Raw? I love the promo.
Oh, the promo was great. Yeah.
Yes. When you and I'm not going to say a lot about it, but my personal attorney here in Memphis is Joe Barton.
Okay.
good friend of mine, an attorney. And I got a phone call from Joe a few weeks ago, and Joe also represents Jerry Lee Lewis. And Joe said, "Hey, Jerry, do you happen to know who I would contact at the WWE about copyright infringement?" And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, "Well, we understand that they're doing a pay-per-view called Great Balls of Fire, and Jerry Lee has that phrase trademarked.
Yeah.
He has ever since, they recorded the song." So anyway, I put him in touch with the WWE people or gave him a name, and I apparently called him, got everything worked out. So they are now not only are they using the name Great Balls of Fire for the promo of the show, they're actually using Jerry Lee's song, which was awesome. I mean, it was a great song, big hit, and I'm like you, I didn't really realize or didn't really think, how does that tie into wrestling? But then when you watch the promo for it, it was awesome. It was really good. It made me want to watch the pay-per-view.
Yeah, it's just funny, hearing guys, say Great Balls of Fire on, pumping up, the pay-per-view on TV.
That's because you always think below the waist. What's wrong with you, Glenn? Great Balls of Fire.
Great Balls.
Of course,
of Fire.
Yeah.
But,
Vince has been known to talk about his grapefruits in the past a lot on the show. So I guess that that may have been the thinking for these Great Balls of Fire. I'm not sure.
Does Vince have final say when it comes to pay-per-view names? I mean, I'm sure you like this because he's an old-time guy.
I don't know. I'm not privy to that information. I would think that Vince probably has final say so on everything that goes on.
But yeah,
I don't know if. Well, that's a pretty important decision. I'm sure that somewhere down the line, before it just goes out there, they would have to go to Vince and say, here's some names that we came up with. What do you think of Great Balls of Fire?
I love Great Balls of Fire.
I don't think that they would just go out there and say, all of a sudden Vince, sees a promo and says, "Hey, why is there a pay-per-view called Great Balls of Fire?"
You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna put 2 big balls of fire on the promo. They're gonna love it.
I would think that Vince. What is that? Your Vince McMahon impersonation?
That's my.
Doesn't sound anything like him.
It does a little bit. No, that's like my Attitude Era Vince. There's also like the, when he was announcer, what a maneuver! Like he has that. There's like different.
That sounded nothing like him either.
You're
maybe
fired.
have another waffle fry. Maybe deepen your voice a little bit.
Oh, Vince is great. You gotta get him on the show.
Yes, he is.
You gotta get Vince on the show.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Call him up. All right. Let's get into the questions. Here we got some fan questions. A lot of people tweeted. Speaking of Twitter, you guys can tweet out the show at Dinner with King. Very, very active on there. I see all your questions, and I write them down or type them out and have them ready for the King. Follow us on Facebook. We have a Facebook page as well. And go to podavenue.com/King for all the podcast app links on iTunes. We're on Stitcher. We're on Android. We're on iPhone. Any device you have, you can listen to the show. Make sure to tell your friends. And also leave a comment, a rating for the show. We're always creeping. We're always in the top 100 when it comes to sports podcasts. So we really appreciate everybody listening.
Is that good?
Top 100 out of all the podcasts that are sports and recreation. Yeah, that's good.
You sure? I mean, I see you post that and put that in there, and I will. Ugh, that doesn't sound that great.
Top 100?
You're in the top.
Do you know how many podcasts there are?
200? No, I don't. I have no
You're selling yourself short, King. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of podcasts.
Oh,
Every
thousands.
celebrity, every sports talking head has a every ESPN, CBS, every wrestler, your wrestling personality seems to have a podcast. I mean, we're always mixed in. Top 100. It depends on the day. We release on a Wednesday, so we're top 50. I mean, we're always up in there. So we appreciate everybody listening and subscribing and leaving a comment or review and tweeting at us, letting you know you enjoy the show. It's nice waking up and seeing a lot of people talking about the shows, the episodes on Twitter. So here are some questions.
Wonderful.
Here's some questions for you. All right, what other gimmicks did you ponder before coming up with a King title? This is from Kevin in Quebec.
What other gimmicks did I ponder before coming up with the King gimmick?
Yeah,
Is that what the
King title. Yeah. Did you have any
Well, I think I've told the story before about how the King gimmick came to be. And back in the day, this started in about 1973 or 74, something like that. That was in an era when everybody didn't have a gimmick. I mean, I was thinking, God, I mean, back in that time, the only gimmicks that I can really remember, and at least that came through the Memphis territory, even when I was a fan back then, like I remember the Sheik. I guess that would sort of be a gimmick. The gimmicks in those days were based basically. I think maybe the number one gimmick at the time was a mask. If you were a masked wrestler, that was a gimmick. Blonde hair was a gimmick at that time. If you had bleached blonde hair, that was a gimmick. But basically the guys were just themselves. They were just fabulous Jackie Fargo. He had bleached blonde hair. Don and Al Green, they were just themselves. Or if you were a foreigner. Like the Von Brauners or the German team or Tojo Yamamoto, that, believe it or not, that was a gimmick back then. So I was kind of one of the first, if you want to call being a king, in which I guess it definitely would be considered a gimmick. I was one of the first people in the Memphis territory to do something like that, and it all just came about coincidentally, and the fact that some of the fans, I just made that interview one day. I was going against Jackie Fargo, who was the top wrestler in the Memphis territory at the time, and just out of the blue, I don't even know where, I pulled it out of my rear end, just said, Fargo, you've been the king of Memphis wrestling around here for a long time, but you're looking at the kid that's going to knock you off your throne. And I was just saying that as an analogy to the fact that, here was a young up-and-coming guy that was going to take the place of the older established veteran. And so anyway, I won the match on that Monday night. And as I'm going back to the locker room, some kids are slapping me on the shoulder and saying, "Hey, you're the king now. You're the king." And I swear at the time, I didn't even remember saying that on the Saturday before that. And so I also that very Friday night, I was booked to wrestle down in Atlanta, Georgia. Jerry Jarrett was booking me down in Atlanta for Jim Barnett on some Fridays, and I didn't know any of the talent down there, and I was just kind of walking in, a new face for the Atlanta territory there. And one of the first guys that I met, he comes walking into the locker room, was Bobby Shane. And I never heard of him, never met him before. And under his arm, he has this big crown, and he's got a cape. He's got this royal robe draped over his shoulder, and he was wrestling in Atlanta as King Bobby Shane. And so, boom, a little light bulb went off over my head, and I said, wow, how funny would that be if tomorrow morning in Memphis, or if I showed up in Memphis with a crown and a cape like this, after calling myself the king against Jackie Fargo. And so I asked Bobby, I said, "Man, where'd you get the crown and the robe?" Because I just explained to him about the interview, and I told him what I'd like to do. And he told me this place, Southern Importers in Houston, Texas, where I got my crowns for years and years and years after that. But he told me, and this was what worked out so great, was he said, "You know what? I'm actually leaving in the morning. Barnett is sending me down to Australia," which I guess Jim Barnett was just kind of promoting in Australia at the time. And he said, "I'm not wrestling down there as the king." And he said, "I really don't want to carry all this big bulky stuff with me. So if you want to, you take it with you tomorrow to TV up in Memphis, and I'll be back in like a month, and you just bring it back to me, when I get back from Australia." So that's how I showed up the next day on Memphis TV, the week after I said that I was going to knock the Fargo off his throne. Showed up the next day with Bobby Shane's crown and his robe on, and that's how the King gimmick came about. And as everyone knows, like a month later, when Bobby got back from Australia, before I could give him his crown and robe back, he got killed in a plane crash down in Florida. Yeah. And so I was left with that crown and robe, and that's how that gimmick, if you want to call it that, came about. And so it wasn't that I ever thought of any other, I didn't ponder any other kind of gimmick before I did the King stuff, and the King stuff just sort of happened rather than me thinking about it.
Yeah, Bobby Shane, 29 years old, died in that plane accident in Tampa. I forget who. One of the, there was Austin. I think it was Austin Idol who was on another podcast. I want to say JR. I'm not sure. I'm sorry, will correct me. And talked about that flight and talked about Bobby Shane and.
Yeah, Bobby Shane was the only one died, and Austin Idol was in that crash as well.
Yeah,
And
Gary Hart, Buddy Colt.
Gary Hart, Buddy Colt, I believe, was the pilot. Was flying the plane.
Yeah. So.
And yeah, that was tough.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll hit on that probably in future episodes.
And talking about Austin Idol in that plane crash, I mean, as anyone, I mean, you can just imagine if you were ever in a fatal plane crash where people died. I would think that would make you not want to fly again. I mean, I've seen people that that say swear off flying just because we're on a turbulent flight or something like that. But you can imagine, and that was one of the things that Austin Idol, when we used him in our territory, he just after that he wouldn't fly. He wouldn't get on a plane. And I think Austin Idol, that to me, I always looked at that as probably, one of the reasons that Austin didn't become a big star in the WWE or WCW anywhere, because he wouldn't fly. He couldn't travel. He wouldn't make those trips and everything. But I mean, he was one of my all-time favorite opponents in Memphis, and we did big business with that guy. Austin's a amazing talent, one of the best promo guys ever. We did big money with him.
I mean, a plane crash was like one. I don't know what are the odds. One in billions, I think. But if
you think if you were in one, that would probably eliminate your chances of ever being in another one.
I mean.
You're probably right.
I mean, I haven't been in the plane crash, but I can see both sides. Like, it's not going to happen to me again. But also, I don't want to fly just because of what happened to me. But I mean, that's very, very tragic. All right, second question and last one before we get into the meat of the show, and we'll do a Ask the King Anything episode, here shortly with all these questions because I have almost 100 questions to go through. Last one, first word or sentence that comes to your mind when I say these names. This is from Mike in Parma. He wants to know, just like say a sentence about this person, Jerry, or a word. So he has 4 names here. Ready?
I don't like these.
All right.
Okay, go ahead.
Jackie Fargo.
Jackie Fargo, like a second father to me. My hero when I was just a wrestling fan, and a lot of times when you get to meet somebody that you've kind of idolized, it's a disappointment, but it was not that way with Jackie Fargo. When I actually got to meet Jackie and become friends with him, he was even a more awesome person than I thought when I watched him on TV. Without Jackie Fargo, I mean, I can look back and say there's so many people, but without Jackie Fargo, there would not be a King Jerry Lawler.
Vince McMahon.
Vince McMahon, man, I can't say, you certainly can't sum up Vince McMahon in one word. One of the smartest and most respected individuals that I've ever met in this business, maybe the premier promoter of all time. I can't say one word bad about Vince McMahon, and the fact that I've never had a bad experience with Vince McMahon. He has always treated me with respect and fairly, and gone above and beyond, to help me out in situations. And I've had a great relationship with Vince over the years, and I hope it continues.
Jim Ross.
Man, I thought they were going to come up with some names that I could maybe say something bad about, but you certainly can't say anything bad about good old JR. I mean, I think without a doubt that, for all the 20 plus years that I worked with JR, I can't say that there's ever been anybody that even Bill Dundee in the ring or anything, but in the ring or out, I don't think there's ever been anybody that I had better chemistry with, working with on a daily basis. I mean, it was just something about JR that when he and I were together, it always clicked, it always worked, and I always enjoyed working with JR. No bad experiences with JR either. It was just always a great guy to work with. And when it comes to announcing and commentary, he's as good as they get. His love of the business and his passion when he's calling a match is just so evident, and it comes through. And I think his passion and his excitement during the matches would get the people so invested and involved in watching the matches that it was just, and it was contagious. His excitement and his passion fed over into me as well, and it was just, there was no way you could call a match with JR that you wouldn't get excited about and wouldn't get involved in. He's just a great guy. And, so sad about the unbelievable tragedy of him losing the love of his life, his wife Jan recently. But the guy he's proved to be a very, very strong individual. And I'll be perfectly honest with you. When I heard the news of this happening, I said, man, I'm so worried about JR. Because I've seen people that, something like this happen to, and it just like destroy their life. But JR has been strong, and he is resilient, and he's persevering, and he's just doing great. Can't say enough good things about JR.
Final name in this question. This will be the final question before we get into Andy Kaufman. He wants to know your sentence or word that comes to mind when you hear The Rock.
The Rock?
The Rock. Or Vince McMahon voice, The Rock.
Now there's a no good SOB. No, I can't. No, I was hoping that there would be somebody in there that I could knock.
Well, who can you knock?
Who
can you knock though? We talked about Taz a little bit. He had some heat on you. I can't name someone off the top of my head in my wrestling knowledge as someone that hates you.
No, you know what? I've been so fortunate over the years that I haven't. I've been able to get along with almost everybody that I've met. I've met some guys that everybody considers to be jerks, but I haven't ever had anybody really treat me that way. I've had some guys do things in the business that Austin Idol. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you how many times that under my breath or at a show that I've cussed Austin Idol because he wasn't there. We used to book Austin Idol and be a big, have a big card booked, and then he would no show. And there's been things like that happen to people or happened with individuals over my career. But that's all. I never really took that stuff personally. That was just all like business related stuff, and so I just really don't have anybody that I could knock. But you talk about The Rock.
Yeah, The Rock.
Oh my gosh, this guy is just amazing. He is just I said in my Mount Rushmore of wrestlers, The Rock would be in there. He's got to be one of the top guys of all time in the history of wrestling. No, but I don't know of anybody that has done more with the exposure that he was given through wrestling that it has catapulted into where he is today. The guy's the highest paid actor in all of Hollywood. That's unbelievable. To come from a wrestling background, to come from a wrestling family, and then to all of a sudden be the top star in all of movie land. It's amazing. You can't. And hey, he had a lot of help. He surrounded himself with a lot of good people on the way up, but ultimately it's all about The Rock. He's got to be one of the smartest guys, and as far as self-promotion goes, that I've ever seen in my life. He's a genuinely likable guy who, heck, he's a true star in every sense of the word. I love The Rock. He's great.
Would you vote for The Rock if he ran for president?
I would. Yeah, you know what? Just so that you could say, "Hey, I used to hang out with the president." I know the president. Just like Donald Trump.
Yeah, you got a picture with Trump. Yeah, Trump.
Pictures of Trump. I've hung out with Donald Trump. Donald Trump. That's a cool thing. I think, no matter who the president is.
All right, let's end the questions. Like I said, any questions that you have, send them in. We'll keep them for a Ask the King Anything, which is a strictly question-only show. And anything goes with the King.
All right, speaking of questions now, Glenn, you know that I'll tell you a question that I've been getting asked a lot lately. The question is, people, especially young ladies, will walk up to me on the street and say, "Oh my gosh, your skin is so smooth. You look so good. You look so nice." I'm 67 years old, and for somebody to come up and say, one bad thing, though, is you get to that point in your life where people say, "Oh, you look good." And I think they're probably thinking maybe they're thinking you look good for how old you are or whatever. But I think that one of the reasons I look so good is because I've joined the Dollar Shave Club, Glenn. You know what I'm talking about, the Dollar Shave Club? Listen, it's the smartest choice that I've made in a long time. Let me just explain it to you where even you will realize, and you were going to have to one day join this, Glenn. I'm getting sick of looking at that beard over there. Listen, and I don't know why you grew that beard, but one of the reasons probably you were just tired of going to the store to buy a cheap disposable razor that gave you one of those cheap shaves, or maybe you were tired of spending a fortune on razors. This is what I used to do. I used to spend a fortune on razors with 4, 5, 6 blades on it, all these gimmicky shaving techniques that you really didn't need. So here's what I did. I joined the Dollar Shave Club. Now look, when I use my Dollar Shave Club executive razor with their Dr. Carver shave butter, which is some awesome stuff, the blade just gently glides across my face, gives me such a smooth shave. Look at this. I mean, have you ever seen a smoother looking shave than this, Glenn? It's awesome. And now here, I'm going to tell you and everybody out there listening how you can make the smarter choice by joining the Dollar Shave Club. Because for a limited time, new members get their first month of the executive razor with a tube of their Dr. Carver shave butter for only $5. $5 and free shipping. So after that, the razors are just a few bucks a month. That's a $15 value for only $5. Now, there's no hidden fees and no commitments. You can cancel anytime you like. And here's all you have to do. To get this offer, you go to dollarshaveclub.com/king. That's right, dollarshaveclub.com/king, and you will thank me. You will send me an email, you will send me a text message, or you will get on the line at Twitter, and you will say, thank you, King, because that was the smartest choice I've ever made when I joined the Dollar Shave Club. Do it.
And we've had a lot of people send some photos of their Dr. Carver's shave butter, photos of the kit they get from Dollar Shave Club. So a lot of people are doing it. And like I said, like Jerry said, send in your tweets to us so we can retweet it and give the love to Dollar Shave Club too.
I'm telling you, it's the smartest choice I've made, and I can't tell you how long. All right, what about Andy Kaufman?
Yeah, Kaufman. Let's talk about him. Let's wrap up this episode as well. We're talking about Andy Kaufman. Now, we talked about Letterman. We talked about the beginning of this feud, the matches, him asking for help. I think we talked a little about the bounties and some of the names that came into Memphis to try to take the money off that bounty and try to attack you. But, towards the end, Jerry, he was sick. I want to know, when did he confide to you that he was sick, that, it was pretty serious about his illness?
Well, I can't remember the exact date, but it was one day, it was Saturday morning TV. He had come to Memphis, and what we would do, we would actually have Andy in the studio next to the one where we shot the wrestling show and where I shot the Jerry Lawler show, and Andy would be in the next studio over with another camera, and we would then put him on the screen behind me as I did my Jerry Lawler show, and it looked like we had him, maybe had him actually from Hollywood, or we may have told the people then that we got Andy Kaufman on the line here from Hollywood, and boom, he'd pop up on the screen. But he was in the next studio over, and one morning we were doing the show, and I remember it was apparently it was close to Thanksgiving or something, but anyway, we were going to award our turkey award for the biggest turkey in wrestling, and we had this big picture of a turkey, and boom, we stuck Andy Kaufman's face on the head of the turkey, and then Andy came on and started complaining about that and sort of thing, and I noticed as he was talking on his interview, he coughed a couple of times.
Let me tell you something else, Lawler. Let me just tell you something else. I don't have to come here and be slandered by you, and I don't have to come here and be on some little rinky-dink show with you. I don't even know why I'm here doing this.
Well, you obviously you were asked to do it, and you've obviously agreed to do it.
Lawler, why aren't you having me one-on-one like Dave Brown? Why don't you have me one-on-one? Are you afraid of me? You afraid of me because you're such a wimp? If you were a real man like you always said you would, you have me in the same studio with you. Do you understand, Lawler? Huh? I'm not afraid of you, but you're afraid of me. Otherwise, I'd be in the same studio. Come on, Lawler. Why don't you have me on one-on-one, Lawler?
Okay, well, we're going to be one-on-one tomorrow night, so that's...
Yeah, and I'll give you the windmill. Let me give you a little advice, Lawler. Don't get too close to me because I'll knock you to the ground. I'm going to just keep that windmill going for an hour if I have to. I've been training every day. I have the windmill going for an hour, and I can keep you away from me. If you get too close, I'll knock you right down to the ground.
Okay, Andy, thanks for being here.
Lawler,
I can just say this. You will be able to make some money as a boxer because you can sell advertising space on the soles of your shoes after I get through with you there tomorrow night. That's enough. We're going to talk about a monkey.
During the interview, which was just not like Andy. It was I just know if he had a cold or what. But then after we did the interview and the show was over, he came over to me and he said, and I apologize for coughing and everything through the interview, but I'm sick. I've just been diagnosed with cancer. And, I just like in the movie, in the movie Man on the Moon, when Jim Carrey tells all his friends that he's been diagnosed with cancer, it was very similar to that where Danny DeVito and all those guys in the movie go, yeah, well, that's not going to fly. That's not going to sell. Nobody's going to buy that. And that's not even funny. I was the same way. I just said, I swear I just thought he was joking. I thought it was another one of his, pranks that he was trying to pull. But then he told me that he was serious. And then, oh gosh, not long after that, he started the chemotherapy, and lost all his, started losing his hair, and then he went ahead and shaved his head. But then, he went downhill really, really fast from that time. But it was like he was still doing the wrestling and still wanting to be involved as long as he possibly could.
When he did pass away, Lance Russell, and I have some audio of that, asked you on the wrestling show, hey, Andy Kaufman has passed away. What are your thoughts? And you kept your in character, saying, hey, I'm not going to say I love the guy.
Well, Jerry, I know it's not a pleasant subject, but I just wanted to ask, because you were so prominent in his wrestling career. We saw the sad news about Andy Kaufman passing away, and I just wondered if you had any comments to make about it.
Well, that is changing the subject, and I got some more I want to say about Humongous, but really I am not, I've had calls all week ever since Andy Kaufman did pass away. I've had calls from TV stations all across the country wanting to know my comments about Andy Kaufman's death. I'm really the wrong person to talk to about that. I didn't like Andy Kaufman. Andy Kaufman didn't like me. I'm sorry that the guy's dead, but I would think that, I always thought that when somebody dies, you talk to somebody that thought a lot of him. I hope that if I die, they don't interview Jimmy Hart, because, I can imagine what he's going to say about it. It's a sad situation. I'm sorry about it. But other than that, that's all I got to say. The thing about Monday night, I want to tell Humongous.
When did you find out that he has passed away, though?
Oh, just like everybody else when it was reported in the news. That's how I found it. Nobody actually called me up and told me. Nobody from his family. And if you watch the movie Man on the Moon, that was one of the end of the movie. That was one of the major parts of the movie. They showed this big funeral scene of Andy's funeral with everybody that was in the movie and everybody that was in Andy's life all gathered for his funeral, and then with Andy's body, laid out there in front of everybody, and then a big movie screen behind his body in which Andy had pre-recorded, a message to everyone before he passed away.
Right.
Well, I've had thousands of people ask me over the years, what was it like being at Andy's funeral after seeing that movie? But in reality, that part of the movie was all artistic liberties. I mean, it never took place. Andy just had a private funeral with just his family there in Long Island, New York. You can go online. I'll tweet this out later on. I've actually got pictures of Andy's little headstone and everything at the cemetery there in Long Island. He did not have a funeral with a lot of people in attendance. I was not at Andy's funeral. And so all of that sort of stuff was just movie stuff. I spoke to Andy's father after at the wrap party for the movie Man on the Moon in I guess 99 or 2000, something like that. That was the first time I'd ever actually spoke to his father. And I've spoke to Andy's brother, Michael, a couple of times since. He's invited me 10 years after Andy passed away to the date. They had a show at the House of Blues in Hollywood, California, that they invited me to. And I went out, and it was booked as the return of Andy Kaufman because, so much had been said about that Andy was going to fake his death and then appear 10 years later. And so they had this big show, and they had me there. And who was the guy I sat next to? He's in all the big movies now. He's just kind of really getting started, big movie star. Anyway, they had a ton of Hollywood people turn out for the show, and they got me up on stage and talk a little bit about Andy. And then, then it came time for the big reveal, and everybody was hoping that Andy would show up, but instead, Tony Clifton was there, and of course it was Bob Zamuda, Andy's friend, is Tony Clifton, and I think everybody realized at that point in time, because people still to this day believe that Andy may have faked his death, but a lot of people believed it at that time, but when Andy didn't show up, and the 10-year anniversary of his death, then I think a lot of people realized, hey, the guy's really gone.
I mean, there's still websites devoted to all the rumors and supposed sightings of Andy Kaufman. Just recently, there was a actress that came on stage at one of these, kind of memorial shows, and was like, "I'm Andy Kaufman's daughter," blah blah blah. I mean, obviously it was fake, but I mean, it's just it's crazy how this conspiracy has lived on, and just hoping that he resurfaces. I mean, I believe that he's also passed away, but just crazy how that lives on forever.
Yeah, it does. I mean, well, that's just a testament to how talented Andy Kaufman was. And you talked about my interview on the wrestling show, following Andy's death.
Yeah.
And I did that not out of disrespect at all, but I did that, and I continued that. I don't know, that line of thinking or whatever that Andy and I had done all throughout our relationship there in Memphis. I did that out of respect for Andy, because Andy was the kind of guy, he never broke character. He never wanted to smarten anybody up on anything that he was doing, and so that's why I continued in that vein of that interview, continuing to knock Andy Kaufman even after his death, because that I believe is what Andy would have wanted me to do. That's the way Andy would have wanted that to continue on. Really quick,
the Man on the Moon. I know there was some segments that didn't happen. Obviously, the funeral, you weren't there and whatnot, and also the wrestling seemed rushed in the movie. They kind of rushed the whole story of it. But obviously, what was your opinion on them adding dramatic effects, dramatic storytelling to kind of enhance the movie than what really happened in reality? I mean, did you have any qualms about that, or like, hey, I'm just doing the movie, I'm happy to be here?
I just did the movie, and I was happy to be there. I think I told you some of the scenes that were shot, and some of the things. Hey, I'm in my mind, I always just look at it. Hey, man, here I am, a kid from Memphis, Tennessee. Just grew up in a poor family and everything, and all of a sudden, I'm sitting here on a movie set doing a scene with Danny DeVito, Paul Giamatti, and Jim Carrey. And then of course so I was just happy to be actually in a Hollywood movie. So that was all real cool and everything. But then when I watched the movie, I was pretty happy with. I was a little concerned about. I didn't think that I thought they tried to make Andy seem a little more strange and a little more odd than he really was. But that was the genius of Kaufman, in the fact that he made everybody think that he was that way, and he really wasn't. Which was him just playing his character in real life. Through his entire life. But but some of the things in the movie were kind of, out of sequence and had to be. I mean, the guy was 35 years of his life tried to be condensed into 90 minutes. So you had to make some shorter and that sort of thing. So that's just the way it was. Other than that, I was pretty happy with the movie. I think Andy would have probably been happy with it as well.
The show, Dinner with the King, we were brainstorming about what the podcast should be, Jerry. The whole Breakfast with Blassie and My Dinner with Andre came up, kind of the same feel, because I enjoyed watching My Breakfast with Blassie with Kaufman interviewing Classy Freddie Blassie. So we kind of modeled this show after that. Two guys sitting here and enjoying a meal and just shooting the breeze about any topic that comes up.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was that was what Andy was best at. And you're right. This whole concept of this podcast came from Andy Kaufman. That's how much of a visionary this guy was, in my opinion.
Now, you teased it last week about something going on with you and Jim Carrey, your co-star in Man on the Moon. What's going on between you two?
My co-star.
Your co-star.
Like that. No. What happened was a couple of weeks ago, during Memphis in May, the executive producer of Man on the Moon, which was Michael Houseman, and he's close friends with, of course, the director of the movie. And anyway, Michael Houseman came to Memphis for his annual visit. I think he still comes down here once a year, visits friends that he made, because they did not only they did the movie. Oh gosh, what was the movie about the guy from Hustler magazine? Oh, the people against Larry Flint.
Oh yes.
They did that movie. They shot that movie in Memphis as well, and Michael Houseman was the producer of that movie, and so they have a love affair, a long-standing love affair with the city of Memphis, and especially the restaurants here. And I didn't get a chance to. I got a chance for Michael Houseman to come to my club down on Beale Street, and he ate dinner there, loved it. He saw all the decor. We have a huge section dedicated to the movie Man on the Moon. All of my Andy Kaufman memorabilia. The actual beard my little goatee that I wore during the movie is on display there in one of the little trophy cases. And so Michael Houseman was in Memphis, and we were talking about the movie, of course. And then I took him downstairs to our VIP room, and downstairs at the club there on Beale Street, I have a lot of my artwork. I probably have over 100 pieces of my artwork hanging on the walls downstairs in my club. And that was the first time that Michael Houseman realized that that I was an artist. And he didn't even realize that. And so he was just fascinated with my artwork. And he said, "Oh my gosh," he said, "Do you know what?" He said, "Jim Carrey, that's all Jim Carrey does now is artwork." He said, he's a pretty damn good artist. And he said, "I'm going to call Jim and I'm going to get you in touch with Jim Carrey." And he said, "I guarantee you he'll come to Memphis just to see your artwork, because he is so into art right now." And he said he just came to New York. Michael Houseman is actually teaching at a little university there in New York, teaching something to do with the movie business. And he was talking to Jim Carrey on the phone, and he said, Jim said, would your class like it if I showed up and made it just like a little special appearance and talked to him about acting? And Michael Houseman said, "Are you kidding? Would they like it? They would go crazy. Could you do that?" And he said the next week, he said Jim Carrey flies to New York and just comes to his classroom and does a talk to his students. So he said, "I'm going to call Jim. I'm going to tell him about your artwork. I'm going to put you two guys together." And he said, "Maybe you could collaborate on a piece of art or something like that." So I'm waiting on the phone call now from Jim Carrey to talk about art.
Nice. That's terrific. That's awesome. That's awesome. Because I know we're in our episode. We're going to talk about your drawings and what you've been involved in, because I know a lot of people love your art, and some people don't know that you're an accomplished artiste. I'm sorry.
And
artiste.
that's what Jim Carrey, and he was so great at that. When I think one of the best things that Jim Carrey did in the Andy Kaufman movie was his portrayal of Andy's alter ego. What was the Tony Clifton?
Yeah.
When he did the Tony Clifton, and Tony Clifton always referred to himself as an artiste. I'm an artiste. But we mentioned Twitter, and what I want to throw my Twitter handle out there, and if you kind of check in on my Twitter, which is of course at Jerry Lawler, very simple. Follow me there, and I'm going to be putting up some things today and tomorrow about Andy Kaufman that I found recently. A picture of that. I told you that Andy loved the wrestling so much, and all the appearances when he came to Memphis to wrestle for us. Of course, we paid him. We paid him just like we paid any wrestler that was on the show. Every appearance we'd write Andy a check for, and Andy never cashed any of those checks. We found out after he passed away that he never cashed the checks, and he told his family that he wasn't doing it for money. He was doing it just because he loved being involved with the wrestling business. So I got a picture of some of those. Checks that, and somebody said we found out later that his father cashed the checks after Andy died, but I really don't think that's true. I think those checks came back to us not cashed.
There you go. Well, I know you got to run, King. I know you're a busy man. You have a busy week coming up. Make sure to follow us, Dinner with King. I'm gonna sneak over to the maple syrup and try to get more for these waffle fries before I go. So, like I said, each and every week, every Wednesday, a new episode of Dinner with the King. And follow me on Twitter at Glenn Moore CLE, and you can follow Jerry at Jerry Lawler. Always a pleasure, King.
Thank you. Hey, look, there's the check. I'm see you. So long, Glenn.
Jerry, before you go, buddy, we got to talk about Dollar Shave Club really quick. And new members of Dollar Shave Club, because of this promo that I'm going to be giving here very, very shortly, get their first month of the Executive Razor and a tube of Dr. Carver's Shea Butter for only $5 with free shipping. And I know, Jerry, you've been using it very, very religiously, and your face is so smooth, people coming up to you talking about, and we get tweets from people all over the world tweeting up their photos of their kit they get from Dollar Shave Club when they use this promo code, and that is dollarshaveclub.com/king, and just a few bucks a month after the first month, and it's a $15 value for only $5. That's dollarshaveclub.com/king. Send your photos to us at Dinner with King on Twitter, or tweet at Jerry, and we'll make sure to retweet it and show some love for Dollar Shave Club. And like I said, dollarshaveclub.com/king, and get that great offer.
The preceding show is a Pod Avenue production.